Teen sends hiking photo to dad. He zooms in and calls 911 immediately. The morning sun filtered through the dense canopy of pine trees as 17-year-old Emma Carson adjusted her backpack straps and took a deep breath of the crisp mountain air. This was her element, the solitude of nature, the challenge of the trail, and the promise of breathtaking views that would make perfect additions to her growing travel blog. Emma's Expeditions. 3,000 followers by summer's end. She whispered to herself, a personal mantra that had propelled her to explore increasingly remote trails over the past year. This particular hike in Blackwater Ridge National Park had been on her bucket list for months, and finally convincing her overprotective father to let her go solo had been a victory worth celebrating. Michael Carson had relented only after days of negotiation, during which Emma had meticulously laid out her safety plan, complete with hourly check-ins and a detailed map of her intended route. At 48, Michael still carried himself with the vigilance that had defined his 20-year career in search and rescue. Retirement hadn't softened his edges. If anything, it had made him more protective of his only daughter. "I promise, Dad. No detours, no talking to strangers, and a photo update every 2 hours." Emma had sworn the night before, knowing these were the only terms under which her adventure would be permitted. 3 hours into her hike, Emma paused at Eagles Point Overlook, a rocky outcropping that offered a panoramic view of the valley below. The densely wooded slopes cascaded into a patchwork of emerald and jade, with the serpentine ribbon of the Blackwater River cutting through the landscape. Pulling out her smartphone, she switched to the camera and held it at arm's length. "Perfect," she murmured, snapping several shots of herself against the backdrop of wilderness sprawling behind her. She studied the photos with a critical eye, selecting the one where her chestnut hair caught the sunlight just right, her wide smile conveying the exhilaration she felt standing at the edge of such vastness. What Emma didn't notice as she tapped away at her phone was the unnaturally still shape partially hidden in the shadowed undergrowth about 50 yards behind her. From her vantage point, it was merely a darker patch in an already dim section of forest, easily overlooked amidst the dappled patterns of light and shadow playing across the forest floor. Emma typed a quick message to accompany the photo to her father. "Eagles Point conquered. Victory Hand check-in number 3 complete. Moving on to Whispering Pines Trail next. Reception might get spotty. Don't worry, I've got this." She pressed send and returned the phone to the zippered pocket of her hiking pants. Adjusting her red bandana and taking a final swig from her water bottle, Emma felt a sudden chill despite the warm June day. She glanced over her shoulder at the dense forest behind the overlook but saw nothing unusual, just the play of shadows and the gentle sway of branches in the breeze. "Get it together, Emma," she muttered to herself. "Dad's paranoia is rubbing off on you." With the determined heft of her backpack, she consulted her trail map and started down the path that would lead her deeper into the heart of Blackwater Ridge. Michael Carson was elbow-deep in engine grease when his phone chimed with Emma's message. He wiped his hands on a shop rag before retrieving the device from his workbench. The restoration of the '67 Mustang had been his retirement project for the past 6 months, a distraction that was only marginally effective at keeping his mind off the dangers his daughter might be facing on her solo adventures. A smile creased his weathered face as Emma's photo appeared on screen. She looked so alive, so in her element against that wild backdrop. It was moments like these that reminded him why he had ultimately given in to her pleas for independence. Emma had her mother's spirit, the same untamable wanderlust that had first drawn Michael to Sarah all those years ago, before cancer had taken her when Emma was just 10. "That's my girl," he said softly, zooming in to better appreciate the joy in his daughter's eyes. But as his fingers spread to enlarge the image, his focus shifted to the background of the photo. Something about the pattern of shadows near the tree line didn't sit right with his trained eye. 20 years in search and rescue had honed his ability to spot anomalies in wilderness settings, a skill that had saved dozens of lives over his career. Michael squinted, zooming in further until the pixels began to blur. There, in the dim recess where the sunlight barely penetrated, was a shape too geometric to be natural. He adjusted the brightness on his phone, and his blood turned to ice. partially concealed by underbrush and fallen leaves, was what appeared to be a human form, lying prone on the ground. But what sent a jolt of adrenaline through Michael's system was the unmistakable gleam of what looked like binding around the figure's wrists, catching a stray shaft of sunlight that had penetrated the canopy. "Jesus Christ!" he breathed, his fingers now trembling as he zoomed in as far as the phone's capabilities would allow. The figure was wearing light-colored clothing, now soiled with dirt, and what might have been blood. Michael's mind raced through recent news reports. Hadn't there been a college student reported missing in that area just days ago? Lily something. He quickly switched to his browser and searched. Missing student Blackwater Ridge. The results confirmed his fears. Lily Sharp, a 20-year-old environmental science major, had disappeared 5 days earlier while collecting samples for a research project. The article included a photo of a smiling young woman with blonde hair, wearing a distinctive pale blue fieldwork shirt with her university's logo embroidered on the pocket, a shirt that matched the glimpse of clothing visible in Emma's photo. Michael's heart pounded against his ribs as his mind processed the implications. Not only was there potentially an injured kidnapping victim mere yards from where his daughter had been standing, but whoever was responsible might still be in the area. And Emma was hiking deeper into the woods, completely unaware. His fingers fumbled with the phone as he dialed 911, his retired search and rescue officer training kicking in with methodical precision despite the fear clawing at his throat. 911, what's your emergency? The dispatcher's calm voice seemed surreal against the backdrop of Michael's racing thoughts. My name is Michael Carson. I'm a retired SAR officer with Blackwater County. He began, his voice steadier than he felt. I need to report a possible sighting of Lily Sharp, the missing student, and my daughter may be in danger. As he spoke, Michael forwarded Emma's photo to his email, then pulled it up on his computer to extract the GPS coordinates embedded in the image metadata, a habit he'd insisted Emma enable on her phone before her first solo hike. The coordinates are 44.7128 degrees north, 107.3465 degrees west, Eagles Point overlook in Blackwater Ridge National Park. He continued, reading off the numbers with practiced precision. There appears to be a bound individual matching Lily Sharp's description in the background of a photo taken approximately 20 minutes ago. My 17-year-old daughter is hiking alone in the park and continuing along Whispering Pines Trail, possibly in the vicinity of whoever is responsible for this. The dispatcher's professional demeanor shifted slightly as she processed the information. Sir, I'm dispatching park rangers and county police to those coordinates immediately. Can you maintain contact with your daughter? Michael's grip tightened on the phone. She mentioned reception might get spotty where she's heading. I'll try calling her now. Please stay on this line, Mr. Carson. I'm transferring you to the incident commander while units are en route. As he waited for the transfer, Michael opened his messaging app with trembling fingers and typed, Emma, call me immediately. Emergency. He hit send, but the message remained undelivered, the first tendrils of dread wrapping around his heart as he realized his daughter was already out of reception range, unaware of the danger lurking in the shadows of her wilderness paradise. Mr. Carson? This is Lieutenant Reyes with Blackwater County Sheriff's Department. The voice on the phone was clipped, professional. Michael switched to speaker and placed his phone on the workbench, simultaneously pulling up a detailed topographical map of Blackwater Ridge on his computer. Years of search and rescue operations had taught him that every second counted. Lieutenant, I'm sending you the enhanced image now, Michael said, his fingers flying across the keyboard. Based on the angle and lighting, I believe the figure is approximately 40 to 50 yards behind my daughter's position, partially concealed under a deadfall. Received, the lieutenant confirmed after a brief pause. And you're certain it matches the description of Lily Sharp? Michael's jaw clenched. Light blue field shirt with a university logo, blonde hair. It matches what was reported in the news. But more concerning is that the figure appears to be bound. You can see what looks like restraints around the wrists. We have rangers converging on those coordinates now, and I've got 3 patrol units en route, Lieutenant Reyes replied. State police are launching a helicopter. What's your daughter's planned route from the overlook? Michael traced a path with his finger on the screen. She mentioned Whispering Pines Trail. That leads down into the valley and runs alongside Blackwater River for about 4 miles before looping back to the main trail system. Poor cell coverage in that valley, the lieutenant noted, echoing Michael's fears. Mr. Carson, I need your daughter's description and what she's wearing today. Michael closed his eyes, visualizing Emma as she'd left the house that morning. 17, 5'6", athletic build, long brown hair usually in a braid. She's wearing a green hiking shirt, tan pants, red bandana, and carrying a navy backpack with yellow straps. While the lieutenant relayed this information to his teams, Michael stared at the horrifying detail in the photo, the bound figure that could only be Lily Sharp. Had she been alive when Emma unknowingly captured this image? Was her captor nearby, perhaps watching Emma from the dense forest? Mr. Carson, the lieutenant's voice cut through his thoughts. Our database shows you served with Blackwater SAR for 20 years. Your experience could be valuable here. I'll help however I can. Michael responded immediately. The helicopter will be airborne in 10 minutes. I'd like you to join the search coordination at our mobile command center. We're setting up at Blackwater Ridge Visitor Center. I'll be there in 20 minutes, Michael said, already reaching for his old SAR jacket hanging on a nearby hook, a jacket he'd hoped never to need again. The Blackwater Ridge Visitor Center had transformed into a bustling operations hub by the time Michael arrived. Rangers, deputies, and state police officers moved with urgent purpose, radios crackling with updates. A large tactical map had been spread across the table, with Emma's hiking route marked in red. Lieutenant Reyes, a compact, intense woman with close-cropped salt and pepper hair, waved Michael over. We've got confirmation, she said without preamble. The Rangers found disturbed ground, broken vegetation, and partial boot prints near the location in the photo. Michael's heart sank. And Lily? No sign of her. But they found this. She held up an evidence bag containing a torn piece of light blue fabric. It's fresh, snagged on a branch right where your daughter's photo showed the figure. Lab confirms it matches the material of Lily Sharp's field shirt. A cold realization washed over Michael. They moved her. They saw Emma taking photos and moved Lily immediately after. Lieutenant Reyes nodded grimly. That's our assessment. Which means, whoever has Lily knows Emma might have inadvertently photographed them. Michael finished, his voice hollow. The lieutenant pointed to the map. We've got teams setting up containment on all park exit routes. The helicopter is making sweeps along the main trails, and K-9 units are being deployed from the overlook location. She fixed Michael with a steady gaze. But I need your expertise on where someone might go if they were trying to avoid detection in this terrain. Michael leaned over the map, his mind racing through the topography he knew so intimately. There are 3 unmaintained game trails that don't appear on public maps, he said, pointing to locations only a veteran SAR officer would know. This one leads to an abandoned fire lookout tower. This one connects to a series of caves near the river bend. And this one. He tapped a spot deep in the eastern quadrant. This one leads to an old trapper's cabin. It's remote, secluded, with multiple escape routes. Perfect spot for someone hiding a captive. Lieutenant Reyes agreed. She immediately dispatched teams to all 3 locations, prioritizing the cabin. Michael's phone chimed, an incoming call from Emma. Relief flooded through him as he fumbled to answer. Dad? Emma's voice came through, sounding confused and slightly annoyed. I got your message when I hit a patch of reception. What's going on? Emma, listen to me very carefully, Michael said, keeping his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. Where exactly are you right now? About 2 miles down Whispering Pines. Dad, what's the emergency? Emma, I need you to turn around and head back to the visitor center immediately. Stay on the main trail, don't stop for anyone. There's a police helicopter in the area looking for you, wave if you see it. Dad, you're scaring me. What's happening? Before Michael could respond, Emma's voice suddenly dropped to a whisper, sending ice through his veins. Dad, there's someone on the trail ahead of me. A man in camo. He just ducked behind a tree when he saw me looking." The line went dead. "Emma? Emma!" Michael's shout drew every eye in the command center. He turned to Lieutenant Reyes, his face ashen. Call dropped. "She said there's someone watching her on the trail, a man in camouflage." The lieutenant immediately grabbed her radio. "All units, possible suspect contact with Emma Carson on Whispering Pines Trail, approximately 2 miles from Eagles Point. Described as male in camouflage clothing. Helicopter unit divert to that location now." Michael tried calling Emma back repeatedly, but each attempt went straight to voicemail. "Signal's gone," he muttered, knuckles white around his phone. "We've got her approximate location," Lieutenant Reyes reassured him. "The chopper will be there in less than 4 minutes." Emma stared at her phone in frustration. The signal had vanished as quickly as it had appeared, cutting off her conversation with her increasingly panic-sounding father. Something was seriously wrong, but she had no idea what. She scanned the trail ahead where she'd glimpsed the camouflaged figure. Nothing moved except the gentle sway of pine boughs in the afternoon breeze. Had she imagined it? The forest had grown unnaturally quiet, no birdsong, no scurrying of small animals through the underbrush. Just silence. "Hello?" she called out tentatively. "Is someone there?" Only the whisper of wind answered her. Emma's heart thudded against her ribs as she weighed her options. Continue forward into potential danger, or turn back as her father had instructed. The sun would be setting in a few hours, and doubling back would mean hiking in darkness for the last portion of the trail. A flash of movement caught her eye, not on the trail ahead, but off to her left, deeper in the woods. Just a glimpse of olive drab disappearing behind a large boulder. "Hey!" she called out, her voice stronger now, fueled by a mixture of fear and irritation. "I can see you!" No response, but Emma's survival instincts, honed by years of her father's cautionary tales, were screaming at her to retreat. She began backing away slowly, keeping her eyes fixed on where she'd seen the movement. That's when she noticed something odd about the trail markers. The small orange blazes nailed to trees that indicated the Whispering Pines route had been altered. Someone had painted over several of them with dark green, almost camouflaging them against the bark, and added new blazes that pointed to a faint side trail, one that wasn't on her map. "They're trying to lead hikers off the main path," she whispered to herself, the realization sending a chill down her spine. A distant mechanical thrumming reached her ears, the unmistakable sound of helicopter rotors. Emma looked up, but the dense canopy obscured her view of the sky. Why was a helicopter flying over Blackwater Ridge? Was it connected to her father's urgency? The puzzle pieces weren't fitting together, but one thing was clear: she needed to get back to the main visitor center. Following her father's instructions suddenly seemed like the wisest course of action. Emma turned to head back the way she'd come, but froze when she noticed fresh boot prints in a muddy section of trail, prints that hadn't been there when she'd passed through earlier. They were large, with a distinctive tread pattern, and they overlapped her own smaller footprints. Someone had been following her. The helicopter sound grew louder, now hovering somewhere above the canopy. Emma tried to find a clearing where she might be visible from the air, but the forest was too thick. She needed to keep moving. As she hurried back along the trail, Emma's trained eye began noticing other disturbing signs she'd missed on her way in. Broken twigs at shoulder height, recently disturbed leaf litter beside the path, a piece of grass bent in an unnatural direction, all indicators that someone had been moving parallel to the trail, watching from just inside the tree line. Her father's obsessive lessons in wilderness safety and tracking, which had seemed so tedious during her childhood, now sharpened into focus. Michael Carson had prepared her for this moment without either of them knowing it would come. The trail curved around a massive fallen oak, and Emma stopped short. In the soft dirt beside the path was a clear impression that turned her blood to ice. The outline of a body having lain there, with dragged marks leading away into the underbrush. Next to it lay a woman's hair elastic, bright blue against the dark earth. A twig snapped in the forest to her right. Emma didn't hesitate. She broke into a sprint, her years of cross-country training propelling her forward with speed and agility. Behind her, she heard the unmistakable sound of heavy footfalls giving chase. The helicopter was directly overhead now, the downdraft from its rotors creating a tempest in the treetops. A voice boomed from a loudspeaker, but the words were unintelligible over the mechanical roar and the pounding of blood in Emma's ears. She veered off the trail impulsively, ducking under low-hanging branches and leaping over exposed roots. If someone was following the trail, maybe she could lose them by cutting through the forest. It was a dangerous gamble. Leaving the path went against every wilderness safety rule, but staying on the trail with an unknown pursuer felt more dangerous. Emma scrambled up a steep, rocky incline, her hands finding purchase on roots and stone outcroppings. At the top, she crouched behind a large boulder, fighting to control her ragged breathing as she peered back the way she had come. For several long minutes, she saw nothing. The forest had fallen silent again, save for the now distant sound of the helicopter moving away to the west. Had she lost her pursuer? As her breathing steadied, Emma reached for her phone to try calling her father again. Her stomach dropped. The phone was gone, likely fallen from her pocket during her headlong flight through the woods. Without the phone, without a trail, and with the sun now noticeably lower in the sky, Emma realized she was in serious trouble. What had her father been trying to warn her about? Who was the man in camouflage? And what was the significance of the disturbed ground and the blue hair elastic? One thing was certain, she needed to find her way back to civilization before nightfall. And she needed to avoid whoever was prowling these woods at all costs. Emma drew upon every bit of wilderness knowledge her father had drummed into her over the years. First priority, orientation. The sun was lowering in the western sky, which meant east, and the main park entrance lay in the opposite direction. She spotted a tall pine that looked climbable and made her way to it. With careful movements, Emma ascended the tree until she cleared the surrounding canopy. The helicopter was now just a distant speck to the north. Below her stretched an unbroken emerald carpet of forest, with no visible landmarks except, there, a thin ribbon of silver that had to be the Blackwater River, perhaps a mile to the east. If she could reach it, the river would lead her back to the visitor center. As Emma descended, a flash of unnatural color caught her eye. About 100 yards downslope lay what appeared to be a small clearing with something tan and geometric, a tent. Curiosity warred with caution in her mind. Could it be other hikers who might help her? Or was it the campsite of the person who had been following her? The light was fading quickly. Making a decision, Emma moved silently toward the clearing, employing every stealth technique her father had taught her. Stop. Listen. Move 5 steps. Repeat. When she reached the edge of the clearing, Emma's breath caught in her throat. It was indeed a campsite, a small, efficient setup with a low-profile tent, a collapsible camping table, and a fire pit that had been carefully disguised to minimize smoke. But the fire was cold. The site appeared recently abandoned. This was no ordinary camper's setup. The tent had been pitched beneath a natural arch of fallen trees, making it virtually invisible from above, even from a helicopter. The entrance faced away from the main trails, and pine branches had been strategically placed to break up its outline. Someone had gone to great lengths to avoid detection. Emma hesitated at the clearing's edge, every instinct warning her to turn back. But the fading light and her need for any clue about what was happening pushed her forward. Moving with deliberate care, she approached the tent and peered inside. The interior was Spartan, a sleeping bag, a backpack, and a few supply containers. But what made Emma's blood freeze was the wall of the tent lined with photographs, surveillance photos of different women hiking alone on various trails throughout the park. In each photo, the woman was marked with a red X. One of the photos depicted a blonde woman in a light blue shirt, the same shirt Emma's father had been frantically trying to warn her about. A map was pinned beside the photos with routes marked in red, including the very trail Emma had been hiking today. Her trail. With trembling fingers, Emma reached for the backpack and unzipped it. Inside, she found zip ties, duct tape, a hunting knife, and a scarf, a blood-stained floral scarf that matched the description of the one Lily Sharp had been wearing when she disappeared. The news reports came flooding back to Emma's memory, The missing college student that everyone had been talking about. "Oh my God!" she whispered, the full horror of the situation finally crystallizing. She wasn't just dealing with a creepy stranger in the woods, she had stumbled into the lair of the person who had abducted Lily Sharp. A thunderous crack of a breaking branch spun Emma around. The man in camouflage stood at the edge of the clearing, his expression unreadable beneath a green and black face-painted mask. In his hand was a hunting rifle, pointed directly at her. "Shouldn't touch what isn't yours," he said, his voice eerily calm. "Though I suppose it doesn't matter now." Emma's mind raced through her options. Run? He'd shoot her before she made it 3 steps. Fight? He was twice her size with a firearm. Her only advantage was that he seemed to want her alive. Otherwise, why hadn't he fired already? "Where's Lily?" Emma demanded, surprised at the steadiness in her voice. A cold smile spread across the man's face. "Worried about her? You should be worried about yourself, Emma Carson." The use of her full name sent chills down Emma's spine. He'd been planning this, had known who she was all along. "My dad knows I'm here," she bluffed. "That helicopter was looking for me." "They're looking in the wrong place," he replied, gesturing with the rifle. "And by tonight you'll be somewhere they'll never find." He reached into his pocket and pulled out her phone. "Careless to drop this. Made it too easy to track you." Emma's eyes darted around the campsite, searching for anything she could use as a weapon or distraction. The hunting knife was still in the open backpack, just a few feet away. "Move away from my things," the man ordered, taking a step closer. In that moment, the distant sound of barking dogs reached them. The K-9 units must have picked up her scent. The man's head turned slightly toward the sound. It was all the distraction Emma needed. She lunged for the backpack, her fingers closing around the handle of the hunting knife. In the same motion, she flung the bloodied scarf at the man's face and dived for the narrow gap between the tent and the fallen tree. The rifle cracked, the bullet splintering bark inches from her head as she rolled beneath the natural arch. Without hesitation, Emma sprinted into the darkening forest, the knife clutched in her hand, her only thought to put as much distance as possible between herself and the campsite. Behind her, she heard the man crashing through the underbrush in pursuit, no longer bothering with stealth. The dogs sounded closer now, but would they reach her in time? Emma ran with every ounce of strength she had left, brambles tearing at her clothes, low branches whipping her face. The fading light made the forest floor treacherous, roots and holes threatening to trip her with every step. Then the ground simply disappeared beneath her feet. Emma plummeted down a steep, hidden ravine, tumbling through brush and over rocks before landing hard on her side at the bottom. Pain exploded through her ankle, and she bit down on her lip to keep from crying out. Above her, she could hear the man's footsteps approaching the edge of the ravine. Emma pressed herself against the damp earth wall of the ravine, willing her ragged breathing to quieten. Above, the man's boots crunched on loose stones as he paced along the edge. The knife trembled in her white-knuckled grip, her only defense if he spotted her. "I know you're down there, Emma," he called, his voice echoing in the narrow space. "That was quite a fall. Are you hurt? Let me help you." The false concern in his tone made her skin crawl. Emma remained motionless, barely breathing as she assessed her situation. Her ankle throbbed painfully, not broken, she hoped, but definitely sprained. Darkness was falling rapidly now, the ravine already deep in shadow. The barking of the search dogs had grown fainter, not closer. They had lost her trail. A beam of light swept over the ravine as the man clicked on a powerful flashlight. Emma tucked herself tighter against the wall, pulling her legs in despite the pain that shot through her ankle. The light paused, moved on, then swung back suddenly, pinning her in its harsh glare. "There you are," the man said, satisfaction dripping from his voice. He began picking his way down the steep slope with practiced ease, the rifle slung across his back, flashlight in one hand. Emma weighed her options. Running was impossible with her injured ankle. Fighting seemed futile against his size and weapons. Her only chance might be to keep him talking until help arrived, if it was coming at all. Why are you doing this? She called out, buying time as she painfully shifted position, readying herself for whatever might come next. The man paused his descent. You really want to know? I suppose you've earned that much. He resumed climbing down, methodically finding secure footholds. These woods have been my hunting ground for years. Park rangers, search teams, none of them ever noticed. Pride laced his words. I'm like a ghost here. No one sees me unless I want them to. Until today, Emma challenged, her mind racing. My photo. My dad saw you. The man's face hardened as he reached the bottom of the ravine, now just 15 feet from where Emma crouched. A complication, yes. But easily managed. He set the flashlight on a rock, its beam creating harsh shadows across his camouflaged face. Your father's involvement is unfortunate. I had you selected for next month, actually. Had to accelerate my timeline. The casual way he spoke of his plans sent ice through Emma's veins. This wasn't an opportunistic attack. He had been stalking her, planning her abduction with calculating precision. You won't get away with this, Emma said, fighting to keep her voice steady. They know who I am, where I was hiking. They know what I wanted them to know. He interrupted, taking another step closer. Those altered trail markers? They'll lead the search teams in circles while we disappear. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a zip tie, the plastic catching the flashlight's beam. Emma's grip tightened on the knife hidden at her side. Where's Lily? Is she still alive? A smile played at the corner of his mouth. So concerned about others. She's nearby. Alive for now. You'll be joining her shortly. He took another step forward. Who are you? Emma demanded, stalling for time, subtly adjusting her position against the ravine wall. At least show me your face. To her surprise, he hesitated, then reached up and wiped the camouflage paint from his features with his sleeve. In the harsh flashlight beam, a face emerged that made Emma gasp in recognition. Park Ranger Davis? She whispered in disbelief. The man who had checked her hiking permit that very morning at the trailhead now stood before her, transformed from helpful authority figure to predator. No wonder he had known her full name. She'd written it in the trail register under his watchful eye. You remember me. I'm flattered. His smile never reached his cold eyes. I've had my eye on you for months, Emma. All those solo hikes, always so prepared, so confident. You'll be my greatest challenge yet. As he raised the zip tie and moved toward her, Emma made her decision. With every ounce of strength and training from years of competitive sports, she launched herself forward, driving the hunting knife toward his midsection. Davis reacted with unexpected speed, twisting aside so the blade merely sliced his jacket. His hand clamped down on her wrist with crushing force, twisting until the knife fell from her numb fingers. That, he hissed, was very stupid. Emma brought her knee up hard, catching him in the groin. His grip loosened just enough for her to wrench free and stumble backward. But her injured ankle betrayed her, buckling as she tried to put weight on it. She collapsed against the ravine wall, trapped. Davis recovered quickly, fury distorting his features as he advanced on her. No more games? He growled, reaching for her throat. The sound of a helicopter roared overhead, suddenly much closer, its searchlight cutting through the gathering darkness. Davis glanced up instinctively. Emma! A voice echoed through the ravine, her father's voice, amplified by a megaphone. Emma, we're coming! Davis's head snapped back to Emma, calculation replacing rage in his eyes. They can't help you, he said, grabbing her arm and yanking her to her feet. We're leaving. Now. I don't think so. The new voice came from behind Davis, steady and authoritative. Lieutenant Reyes stood at the edge of the ravine, her service weapon trained on Davis's back. Park Ranger Davis, release the girl and put your hands where I can see them. Davis froze, his fingers still digging into Emma's arm. His eyes darted around, searching for escape routes. It's over, Davis. Lieutenant Reyes continued, her aim unwavering. We found Lily Sharp 20 minutes ago in the old fire tower. She told us everything. Now, last chance, Release Emma and put your hands up. For one terrifying moment, Emma thought he might use her as a shield or hostage. Then, with a hiss of frustration, Davis shoved her away from him, sending her sprawling to the ground. On your knees! Hands behind your head! Reyes commanded as she began descending the slope, her gun never wavering from Davis's chest. Above them, the helicopter spotlight illuminated the scene like a macabre stage play. More voices approached through the forest, the search teams converging on their location. As Emma watched Davis slowly comply with Lieutenant Reyes's commands, a figure appeared at the top of the ravine, her father, wild-eyed and desperate, scanning the area until his gaze locked with hers. Emma! Michael's voice broke as he scrambled down the ravine, heedless of the steep drop. Lieutenant Reyes had Davis in handcuffs by the time Michael reached his daughter, gathering her into a fierce embrace that spoke volumes more than words ever could. Dad, Emma whispered, her composure finally cracking as the adrenaline ebbed away. You found me. Always, he promised, his voice rough with emotion. Always. 3 weeks later, Emma sat in the hospital waiting room, a bouquet of wildflowers clutched in her trembling hands. Her ankle, wrapped in a supportive brace, was healing well. The physical scars would fade far sooner than the psychological ones. She's ready to see you, the nurse said with a gentle smile. Emma nodded, standing carefully and following the nurse down the corridor to room 214. Despite having rehearsed this moment countless times in her mind, she found herself speechless when she finally stood face to face with Lily Sharp. The young woman sitting up in the hospital bed looked simultaneously stronger and more fragile than Emma had imagined. Fading bruises marked her face, and her wrists bore the healing marks of restraints, but her eyes were clear and determined. You must be Emma, Lily said, her voice surprisingly steady. They told me you'd be coming. Emma stepped forward, offering the wildflowers awkwardly. I wanted to see how you were doing. Lily accepted the flowers with a small smile. Better each day. The doctors say I can go home next week. She studied Emma's face intently. They told me what happened. How your dad saw me in the background of your photo. I didn't even know you were there. Emma admitted, the guilt she'd been carrying for weeks rising to the surface. If I had looked more carefully. Don't, Lily interrupted firmly. You saved my life, Emma. If you hadn't taken that selfie. She didn't need to finish the sentence. They both knew what Davis had planned. Did he? Emma hesitated, unsure how to ask the question that had been haunting her. Tell me about his other victims? Lily finished for her. Yes. During the days he kept me captive, he liked to talk about his collection, as he called it. She shuddered slightly. The police have been searching the areas he mentioned. They'd found remains. The news reports had been circumspect about the discoveries in Blackwater Ridge National Park, but the numbers were staggering. 7 women over 5 years, all solo hikers who had disappeared without a trace. Davis, with his position as a trusted park ranger, had perfect cover for his hunting ground. I should have noticed something was off about him, Emma said, sinking into the chair beside Lily's bed. He checked my permit that morning, wished me a safe hike, and all the while he was planning. We all missed it, Lily replied. He was careful, methodical. That's how he got away with it for so long. She reached out, her hand finding Emma's. But he didn't count on your father. The media frenzy surrounding what they dubbed the Blackwater Ridge Killer was intense. Emma's innocent selfie became the centerpiece of news stories nationwide, the photo that had inadvertently captured a kidnapping victim and led to the apprehension of a serial predator. Michael found Emma sitting on their back porch one evening, scrolling through the comments on her latest blog post. Since using Emma's expeditions to share her experience, her followers had ballooned from a few hundred to over 200,000. Still can't believe how many people are following your story, Michael said, settling into the chair beside her. Emma nodded, setting down her phone. I posted about wilderness safety today. Basic stuff you taught me years ago. She paused, swallowing hard. It got 10,000 shares in an hour. Michael studied his daughter's face, noting the shadows beneath her eyes that hadn't been there before that fateful hike. "You don't have to do this, you know. No one would blame you if you shut down the blog, took some time." "I need to do it, Dad," Emma replied with quiet determination. "When I was in that ravine, thinking I might die, I promised myself that if I survived, I'd make it mean something." The preliminary hearing for Davis had revealed the full extent of his crimes, a methodical predator who had used his position as a park ranger to identify, stalk, and abduct lone female hikers. Emma had sat in the courtroom, Lily beside her, as the prosecutor detailed the charges. 2 counts of attempted finishing. The evidence from his campsite had been damning. "I've been talking with Lily," Emma continued. "We're starting a foundation for families of missing hikers. Using my platform to help fund search efforts, train volunteers." Michael's eyes welled with unexpected tears. "Your mother would be so proud of you." Emma leaned against her father's shoulder, the way she had as a child. "I keep thinking about how close it was. If you hadn't zoomed in on that photo." "But I did," Michael said firmly. "And you survived. You fought back." They sat in companionable silence as twilight settled over their backyard. Emma's phone buzzed with another notification, another follower, another comment from someone touched by her story. "I'm thinking of leading group hikes," she said after a while. "Teaching women basic wilderness survival and safety. There's already interest from the community college." Michael nodded, pride swelling in his chest. His daughter was transforming her trauma into purpose, her fear into strength. "No more solo hikes though," Emma added with a small smile. "At least not for a while. Maybe you could come with me next time?" "I'd like that," Michael replied, his hand finding hers. "Partners?" "Partners," Emma agreed, squeezing his hand as they watched the first stars appear in the darkening sky. The photo that had started it all now hung framed in their living room, not as a reminder of the horror that had followed, but as testimony to the power of looking closer, of paying attention to details others might miss, and of the unbreakable bond between a father and daughter who had faced darkness together and emerged into the light.